Okay, so in this lab, what we'll do is we'll set up our firewall. So this is a pfSense firewall, and we're going to have a public network here, a private network, and a DMZ. On the private network, we'll have a Ubuntu server, and then on the DMZ, we'll have a Windows machine, Cali, and Metasploitable, and then on the public network here, we'll have another Cali instance. So the only machine here that's going to be DHCP is this one. All the other ones will set up the IP addresses, subnet masks, and default routes, and so on. Okay, so that's our setup, and I'm going to choose 12.12.12.0/24 here, and 12.12.13.0 here. This one here will be defined by our DHCP, and it's from this subnet here, which is 10.221.0.0/22. Okay, so this one will be 12.12.12. This one will be 12.12.13. I'll place the hosts at .7, and .8 and .9 over here. Okay, so we'll just get started here. So what we'll do is we'll start up our pfSense first. Get that powered on, and then we'll start up our Ubuntu machine. Then we'll start up Windows, and then Metasploitable, the Cali on the DMZ, and the Cali on the public network. Okay, so that's all of our machines powered up. And so the first thing that we'll actually do is we'll boot up our firewall, and then we'll get that set up. Okay, so here's our pfSense. So we won't set up VLANs. And then for the WAN interface, we'll take that from VMX0. The LAN will be VMX1. The DMZ will be VMX2. Okay, so that's everything is set up there. Okay, so we're just starting up our firewall. Remember, this is the setup that we're going to have, and we'll just let that start. While it's doing that, let's go to our Ubuntu machine. Get a tap of that, and then we'll just put the password in. Okay, we'll just bring up our terminal. Okay, so our pfSense firewall has started up. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just go back and we'll enable our Ubuntu machine by setting up its IP address. So the IP address here is 12.12.12.7. Okay, so we'll just have a look at our addresses, and we can see here the name of our interface adapter is ENS160. So we'll set that up, make sure it's enabled, and it's ENS160 up. Okay, Now what we'll do is we'll set up the IP address on this interface, and it's 12.12.12.7, and it's a /24, and the device is ENS160. Oops, sorry, just missed out something there. So it's sudo IP address add, there we go. So we'll just check that that interface is alive before we proceed. That's okay. Right, so the next thing we've got to do is to set up the default gateway. So on the firewall, we'll set up the default gateway to be 12.12.12.254. So root add default. So all the packets that aren't destined for the local network will go through the default route, and that just happens to be the firewall. So that's 12.12.12.254, and that is through ENS160. Oops. Just let me check. I've got the IP this time. So it's IP root. Okay, so the gateway isn't set up yet. We haven't set that up on the firewall. So we'll just leave that just now. And the next thing that we need to do is to set up the DNS. So that is set up in the server here. And this is actually set up correctly. 146.176.1.5 and 2.5 are the name servers that we want to use. Okay, so then we can go back to our pfSense and we'll set up the LAN network. So set the IP address to, and we're going to set up the LAN, and we want that to be 12.12.12.254 and 24 bits for the subnet mask, and that's it. No DHCP server, and we're going to be able to configure the actual firewall from a web interface from the LAN if we set this up. So we'll say yes. Okay. So sometime soon we should be able to get the default gateway to be pinging, and it is. Okay, which means that our firewall is now set up. Okay, so let's see, the firewall should be open, and we can see that works there. We can ping Google, and we'll do an NS lookup for google.com just to see if our DNS is working, and that's working perfectly. Okay, so if we pull up a browser, then this should work. So this is because the private network is allowed to speak to any network. The firewall doesn't block by default. Okay, so we can see that's working perfectly. So we can now connect to our firewall here on 254, and it's admin and pfSense. Okay, that's us connected to the firewall now. So the next thing we'll do is we'll set up the other hosts. So we'll set up our Cali machine. In fact, what we'll do is we'll set up the Windows machine first. So this is our Windows machine here. And so this is going to be set up for 12.12.12.13.7. So this is on the DMZ, so the firewall will block this, any traffic from here before we open up the ports on the firewall. Okay, so let's set up our network interface. Okay, so this is going to be 12.12.13.7, and the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0, and the default gateway will set up to be 12.12.13.254. So this will be the port at which we connect here to the firewall. For our DNS, we'll set up 146.176.1.5, and we can go for a secondary one. Here. 2.5. Okay, so the gateway doesn't exist at this point, but we should be able to ping our own address. That's fine. So now what we'll do is we'll set up the firewall so that it will now have an additional port. So we want to set up OPT. We'll enable the interface, and we need to give it an IP address. Static IP address. And it's going to be 12.12.13.254. And we want a /24 network there, and everything's fine. Okay, so it's now set up. If we go back here, then we should see that that address has now been set for the DMZ or OPT1. We could have set that initially from the console here, but it's probably just as easy just to do it from the web interface from Ubuntu. Okay, so hopefully now, when we go back to Windows, we should be able to, well, we won't be able to ping our default gateway because it's actually blocked just now. So what we'll do is we'll go back to pfSense from Ubuntu, and we'll look at Firewall, Rules, and go to our DMZ. We could rename this if we wanted, but we'll just leave it as the default just now. And now what I'll do is I'll allow it to be able to ping any network. So this ICMP, any. Okay, so that's our applied rule, and we'll just go back just to check that I've enabled the port. Okay, we'll just apply that. Okay, so we now have that interface set up. We just go back here and have a look at our setup. So 12.12.13.254 is our Windows, our DMZ default gateway. So we'll go back here and we'll just ping own interface first. That's fine. And then we'll ping 254, and that's fine too. Okay, so you can see now that we now are able to ping our default gateway. If I disable that rule, and let's just delete it. Apply the changes. So we go back here and we try again, and you can see that we can't ping, even though the interface is there, we can't actually ping that interface. So we'll just add that back in. Okay, so we want ICMP. And any. That works fine. Okay. So all the other ports will be blocked. So if we try to create an NS lookup for google.com, then it won't work because the firewall is blocking any access outside the DMZ. The only protocol it's allowing is ICMP. So now what we'll do is we'll create a rule from the DMZ to allow our UDP traffic to get out. So UDP, and we want our destination to be DNS. Okay, so we'll save that, apply the changes. Now when we go back here and we do our NS lookup, we can see that we can get the IP address resolved. So now say that we want to open up Google. So we can see that it's resolving the IP address, okay, but we're not actually getting connected. So now what we need to do is to open up the firewall on the DMZ. For TCP on 443, this TCP from any, and the destination port is 443. So if we open this up, then the traffic that comes back will be automatically allowed back in. So the destination port is from any to 443. Okay, so that will allow our web traffic out. Okay, let's just edit this one. So TCP, source any, and then the destination is on, we just want 443. destination port 443. Okay, so hopefully now, because Google is using port 443, we should be able to now see Google. There we go. So that's working perfectly now. Okay, so our Windows machine is all set up. We can browse the internet and get our basic connectivity. Right, so the next thing that we'll do is we'll set up our other machines. So we want to set up our Cali node to be .8. Okay, it looks a bit small. Make it a bit bigger. Okay, so we'll just have a look at our addresses. So we can see that we have an address at ETH0 and it's up, so we don't have to set it up from here. So sudo IP address add 12.12.13.8 /24 dev ETH0. Okay, we'll just ping that address just to see if it's alive. And it is. And we should be able to contact our local machine on Windows, hopefully. And that's alive too. So we can go back to Windows and just check that we can see that machine. So 12.12.13.8. That's great. And again, we can set up a default gateway, IP root, and default via 12.12.13.254 dev ETH0. Okay, so we'll just ping our default gateway. Perfect. And we should be able to ping Google from now. Perfect. Okay, so that's all set up now. We'll just set up our DNS. That's set up okay, so we don't have to change that there. So that means that our Cali machine is all working now. Let's actually see if we can ping our Ubuntu machine. That's great. Okay. So now we'll go to Metasploitable. Here. Open this one up. The Metasploitable machine is running different services that we can connect to. So our login is an MSSF admin password. that's in there. So we'll just have a look at our address, and we've got it at ETH0. So what we're going to do is set this up to be .9 on the 12.12.13.0 network. So sudo IP address add 12.12.13.9 /24 dev ETH0. And sudo IP root add default via 12.12.13.254 dev ETH0. Okay, so we'll just ping ourselves first. That's fine. Ping the default gateway. That's fine. Ping Windows. And ping Cali. Okay, all working. We should be able to go back to any of our hosts and ping the newly created network connection. That's great. Okay, so we can see all of the hosts now. So as a last thing, let's go to the Cali on the public network. So this is on DHCP. So we shouldn't have to change the IP addresses here. Okay, again, the text is quite small for this. So let's just change this again. Okay, so our IP address is already set up for us. It's here. Okay, so we can ping the default gateway, and we should be able to ping Google, and the same again, we should be able to now ping with our DNS. So this is getting the DNS and the DHCP settings from the default gateway, so we don't have to set anything up in here. Okay, so that's the basic setup that we have. What we can do is to go back to our Ubuntu machine. If we can find it. Okay, so we're all set up, hopefully. Right, so we'll do a quick test over the network just to see if everything is connected. So this is ourself. This is the gateway on the firewall. This is the gateway on the other side of the firewall. This is the Windows machine. This is the Cali machine. And this is Metasploitable. Okay, then when we want to see the public Cali, just let me get the IP address for that one. The IP address is 10.221.0.3. Ping 10.221.0.3. Okay, so that's that working perfectly. So one thing that we typically do is we run what's called Nmap. So Nmap allows us to be able to view the actual services that are running on a host. So if I try for the Windows machine to see what services it's running, so that's 12.12.12.13.7. We'll have a look to see, and we can see that it's running quite a lot of services, such as FTP, SMTP, Telnet, and so on. If I now try the Cali machine, then we don't get anything there. If I try Metasploitable, you can see there are a whole lot of services that are running here. And the same goes on the other side. We can go over here, and then we can run Nmap for the Ubuntu machine, 12.12.7. And we can have a look to see the services that are running on that machine. Okay, so we're only seeing HTTPS just now. And the reason for that is because that's the only port that we've opened up on the firewall. So let's go and set up the firewall on Ubuntu to allow all of the network connections from the DMZ into the LAN. So let's add TCP. The source is from any machine on the DMZ, and the destination is going to be for the LAN. Okay. And the destination port will be any to any. Okay, so we now have a rule that allows all TCP traffic into the LAN from the DMZ. So let's go back to our Windows machine and now rerun Nmap. And now we can see lots of services that are actually running, including HTTP. So what I'll do is, hopefully we can now access the HTTP server which is running on Ubuntu. And there it's there. Okay, so it's just a little default Ubuntu page. From there we'll go back to our Ubuntu machine and see if we can contact the web server on Windows. Okay, so if we have a quick look, we should be able to see that HTTP is running on the Windows machine. Okay, so that's the Windows machine there. And port 80 is running. So we should be able to go to HTTP 12.12.12.13.7. And there's the Windows server which is running. So we can check that that is the Windows server. Like if we want to check that that was the Ubuntu one that we had before, we can obviously do a localhost. Okay, and then on Windows we can do a localhost just to check that that's the server that we're accessing in there. Okay, so that's our network all set up, and hopefully that's shown you how you can set up each of your hosts with the firewall.